Now, talking about China, Dr Anthony Fauci is back in the news and he's claiming that Trump's anti-China approach was the reason the Chinese Communist Party was secretive about COVID. This is what Fauci had to say.
What happens is that if you look at the anti-China approach that clearly the Trump administration had right from the very beginning, and the accusatory nature, the Chinese are going to flinch back and say, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to talk to you about it, which is not correct.
But they're not talking to the Biden administration about it either.
Exactly. I think that horse is out of the barn, and they're very suspicious of anybody trying to accuse them. We need to have an open dialogue with their scientists and our scientists, keep the politics out of it, and let the scientists, because these are scientists that we've known for decades, and we've collaborated with them.
We collaborated with them. Yeah, I think that was part of the problem. Now, how does this man even have a job, Douglas? I mean, and has he forgotten that China was arresting whistleblower doctors who were warning about a new virus in Wuhan before the world even knew COVID existed? And they were destroying lab samples. I mean, their secretive way of handling this had very little to do with the Trump administration.
Yes, I mean, you've put your finger on it, Rita. How do you have a dialogue with scientists who've been disappeared? You know, how do you have a dialogue with the people who know how COVID emerged, but who were disappeared by the Chinese authorities, including, by the way, journalists, not just doctors, but journalists who looked into this question in China? I mean, Fauci, have you ever seen a man more pleased with himself, by the way, as an adjunct? Gosh. But I mean, even when the interviewer there says, but they're not talking to the Biden administration, he says exactly, as if this absolutely vindicates his point. You know, but Fauci is just so desperate to make this entirely an issue of the Trump administration's lack of diplomacy. This had very little to do with that. The main problem and the questions about the source of the virus continue, and they continue because of the Chinese Communist Party's willful attempt to cover up and make sure the world doesn't find out what was happening in Wuhan. And I just don't think anyone should be deflected by this Fauci move or by anyone else. I'm very keen that the civilized world gets together and continues to demand a genuine answer to why this virus got out and how we'll make sure it never happens again. But I don't see that unanimity. I see people like Fauci saying, well, let's blame Trump, let's blame Biden, let's blame anyone but the Chinese Communist Party.
And we still don't even know where it came from. You know, that bat theory, whether it was from a lab, that is still not clear, which is remarkable given the impact it's had on the world for the last couple of years.